Hey y'all, it's Kim. So this will be video number 5 of Darren Indyke, the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein's deposition with the GOP Oversight Committee. Um, he still was working with Jeffrey Epstein even after being convicted, I think in 2008. I think he's been with him for a long, long time. Maybe 2005. He could have been earlier. But anyway, either way, he stayed with him until his death and then became the co-executor of his estate. So yeah. And then they set up the Victims Compensation Fund, something like that, together with Richard Kahn. And anyway, if you've been following all this, you already know kind of the breakdown. I'm trying to write something down really quick. Anyway, let's go ahead and let him complete, or excuse me, it's not complete. We still got 3 hours, almost 3 hours worth of information. But let's let them do some more questioning of this guy. And I'll probably set the timer for about 45 minutes. That's enough, I think, because these are so long. Anyway, just give it a moment, and hopefully the audio is good. So some of it's redacted. It does this every time, like buffering.
The Miami Herald published a series of articles about Epstein, his crimes, and allegations by additional women. Were you aware of that series?
I became aware of the series, sure.
And it's been reported that in the wake of the Miami Herald series, additional banks, including Deutsche Bank, dropped Jeffrey Epstein as a client. Is that consistent with your understanding?
The time frame of that story makes sense. You know, in the wake of it, I don't know if that's the correct characterization. I know that the articles came out, and I know that subsequently the bank dropped Epstein as a client.
It's also my understanding that after that happened, Jeffrey Epstein started transferring money to you and to Mr. Kahn. Is that correct?
Transferring money to me?
Yes.
For safekeeping. No, I don't know.
Or either you or to your entity, Darren Indyke PLLC.
So there was a moment, I think the moment that money was transferred to my entity, if I'm remembering this correctly, is after he was arrested again and in jail, and money needed to come to my entity because that was the entity that was paying the law firms that were defending him. I believe that's what happened.
Were there any other reasons for financial transfers from Mr. Epstein, either to you or to entities that you owned?
This, other than to pay compensation to me, none that I'm aware
of. Mr. Indyke, I'm going to shift gears once again and ask you some follow-up questions regarding Les Wexner.
Okay.
To begin with, did you ever meet Mr. Wexner in person?
I've met Mr. Wexner on a couple of occasions, yeah.
What about Abigail Wexner?
Met Abigail Wexner on a couple of occasions.
And Abigail Wexner is Les Wexner's wife?
Yes, she's Les Wexner's wife.
To your understanding, when did Jeffrey Epstein come to know Les Wexner?
Predated my arrival, so I don't know when.
We spoke earlier about the work that Jeffrey Epstein did for Les Wexner.
Yes.
To your knowledge, apart from their business relationship, did Jeffrey Epstein also have a social relationship with Mr. Wexner?
Not having a social relationship either with Mr. Epstein or with Mr. Wexner, I don't know the nature of their relationship. I know that from a business standpoint, they communicated frequently. And on a isolated occasion, a rare occasion, I may have overheard a conversation, though not the detail of it, but it seemed like a friendly tone. But I don't have a full understanding of their kind of interactions outside of the businesses.
Did there come a time when Epstein and Wexner had a falling out?
Yes.
When did that happen?
My understanding at the time that it was happening, which is about the time that he was dealing with the in negotiation with the U.S. Attorney's Office and looking that it was likely he was going to go to jail. And it may have been a little bit before then. And my understanding at the time, as expressed to me, was that because of Wexner's relationship as a principal of Victoria's Secret, it would be inappropriate for him to continue a relationship with Epstein. And as a result of that, there was going to be an unwinding.
Who told you that?
I believe it was Epstein. I believe it was Epstein.
Did he tell you anything else about their falling out?
It wasn't, at the time that it was communicated to me, it wasn't a falling out. Subsequent to that time, but there was a concern about some of the tax planning that Epstein was doing for Wexner in the context of how certain properties Wexner was acquiring were to be held. I believe that Abigail Wexner didn't like or understand what it was, thought it was improper. My understanding at the time was that everything, at least as it was explained to me by Epstein, everything that Epstein did was with knowledge and consent of Mr. Wexner. But, subsequent to that, it's now come out that Mr. Wexner has said that there was fraud involved. And the time, what I understood to be was unwind because of the substantial problem because of Epstein's, the tenor of Epstein's offenses that he was going to plead to. And Wexner's relationship with Victoria's Secret. And then subsequently, there was this notion that some of the ways the properties were held were improper. And then when that became a bigger deal, and then there was this unwinding. So that's what I recall from it.
Are you familiar with the Wexner Foundation?
I'm familiar to an extent with the Wexner Foundation, yes.
It's my understanding that you served as secretary of the Wexner Foundation.
Yes,
right?
As in an administrative capacity, yes, for the purpose of signing documents, secretary certificates, things like that.
How did you come to take on that role?
As part of my work for Mr. Epstein, I did take on work for Mr. Wexner.
Was that at Epstein's request?
Yes. With Wexner's knowledge, too, obviously.
It's also been reported that Abigail Wexner gave you power of attorney in connection with her condominium on the west side of Manhattan. Is that correct?
At some point, I was asked to represent the Wexners in connection with the acquisition of that property, if this is what I'm thinking. I think that's what it was. And in connection with that transaction, I was given power of attorney. I don't specifically recall being given power of attorney, but it would have made sense because I would have had to sign documents because the Wexners wouldn't be troubled to sign documents. They would have given me power of attorney so that I could sign the documents and do the closing.
Did you ever become aware of Les Wexner sexually abusing any women?
No.
Let me ask you another question, and this may have been the conflict that you were describing earlier with respect to the Wexner's assets. Okay. Public reporting has suggested that Jeffrey Epstein stole significant sums, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars from Les Wexner by selling stock of Wexner's limited company through Wexner-affiliated trusts. and then misappropriating the proceeds for personal use. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that.
Is that the situation that you were describing a few minutes ago?
My level of this particular split was not at that high a level. Like other things with Mr. Epstein and his clientele, the conversations he would have with the clientele would be between him and the clientele, and then I would get direction subsequent to that. So what Abigail Wexner thought Epstein did or didn't do was not something that I had personal knowledge of. I knew that there was an elevated tenor at the time, and I knew that there was a need to unwind, and that it became more, honestly, urgent because of that elevated sense of things.
Are you familiar with a friend or neighbor of Les Wexner named Jack Kessler?
I'm familiar with the name. I don't know Jack Kessler.
We understand that Jeffrey Epstein at one point bought a house in New Albany, Ohio from Mr. Kessler. Are you aware of that transaction?
No, the likelihood is that predated me.
Have you ever visited New Albany?
When I first started working for Epstein and also started doing work for the Wexner family, I did, yes.
How many times?
A handful. I don't know exactly. It's a guess.
Moving on from Mr. Wexner, you were asked about Ghislaine Maxwell earlier. I just had a few follow-up questions with respect to her.
Okay.
It's been reported that at one point Ms. Maxwell offered to look into the possibility of adoption for you and your wife. Is that correct?
It was more of a gesture, you know, now looking back on it, it was more of a gesture that I was very upset at the time, and visibly upset by the whole process. And we had gone through it a bunch of times. We lost a child in the interim. And every time we would go to a subsequent treatment, it failed. So at some point, what I perceived to be sensitivity to the plight that I was going through, Epstein had asked Elaine to kind of, again, as I perceived that she was good at organizing things, because she was organizing his household, he asked her to kind of meet with me and Michelle, my wife, and talk to us about what we were looking at, what kind of options we had, and, you know, is there something that could be done to help with any adoptions. I don't think she had any specific knowledge of adoptions or anything like that, but it was meant to be a gesture of sympathy. At least that's how I perceived.
Did you ever discuss with Ms. Maxwell Epstein's relationships with women?
No.
It's been reported that you served as a trustee of a foundation that Maxwell ran. Is that accurate?
In an administrative capacity, there's typically foundations required a number of trustees.
Would that be the Max Foundation?
It was some time ago, but that sounds familiar.
And how did you come to take on that role?
And I believe I was requested to do so by Ms. Maxwell.
When did you become of Ms. Maxwell's arrest?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, sir?
When did you become aware of Ms. Maxwell's arrest?
When it was reported in the paper or on the media.
Did you ever speak to her about the charges against her?
No.
Did you ever speak to anyone else about them?
In the context of conversations with counsel, I've had conversations.
When was the last time you communicated with Ghislaine Maxwell?
I want to say before Epstein's death, I think. I don't remember exactly when. That's okay. Is this loud enough?
Yes. I understood from your prior testimony, just to make sure I have a correct understanding, that your communications with Jeffrey Epstein were related either to corporate or securities work or the real estate matters that you described earlier today. Is that right?
Or aircraft, or business acquisitions, or investment acquisitions and funds, and summarizing the funds. But it was legal advice relating to other transactions, or subsequently some discussions with counsel regarding the issues that he was facing because of his charges.
And what about social matters?
Sorry, you're shouldn't know. I never spoke to Mr. Epstein about the social relationships, the social activity. So it wasn't my place, it wasn't my role.
I'm going to ask the court reporter to mark as Exhibit C an email that we obtained from the website Jmail. It's a thread dated May 25th of 2007. Please take the opportunity to review the document in its entirety. I'm only going to be asking you about the emails at the top and the one right below it on the first page.
So tell me again what you want me to focus on?
Yep, so I'm just going to ask you about the email at the top and the one right below it. So 3:36 p.m. and previous 10:27 a.m.
You mind if I read the whole chain to
Not at all.
get a sense of it? Thank you.
It reads from back to front. Start with back.
I was just front to back.
No, back to front.
I was that's what it was. Okay. I thought it was good. Thank you. So give me a moment, please.
Sure.
What little I remember about this.
I don't think there's a question.
Go ahead.
I'll start with the second email, 10:46.
I wish I wouldn't redact this stuff. Like, just give us the damn information.
So my first question is, what was that issue?
I think this related to putting together a list of friends for the defense counsel. And believe I was asked to go to get that list.
And how did you determine which names to include in this list?
I don't recall how I did it, but my guess is that I would have told his assistant at the time.
And who asked you to compile the list?
I really don't remember. I don't remember if it was him or his defense counsel.
And what use was this list intended to be put to?
I don't think I ever got that far.
No further questions on this document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you ever met Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew?
Yes.
When?
It's difficult for me to say. It was obviously before he died, and it was also in the context of me going to the New York townhouse
Before Mr. Epstein died.
before Mr. Epstein died. Yes, sorry, not Andrew Windsor. Apologies. Also in the context of me going to Mr. Epstein's house for status updates on the matters that I was working on for him. I guess no longer Prince Andrew. That person was either then coming after a meeting or just leaving prior to the meeting. And either I was introduced once or twice to that person.
The former Prince Andrew.
Correct.
So, sir, are we talking about more than one occasion?
Twice.
And were both of these encounters in Mr. Epstein's home?
Yes, in the New York townhouse, and they were passing encounters.
Was the former Prince Andrew in the company of women when you met him?
No.
Did you ever become aware of the former Prince Andrew having a sexual relationship with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
I became aware of allegations made against Prince Andrew subsequently.
At what point in time?
I don't even know how to triangulate that.
Before Jeffrey Epstein's death?
Yes.
Before his Florida arrest?
No.
Have you ever met?
And I mean, that's helpful for me. Not before the arrest, not before the conviction either. I think it was subsequent to the jail time.
Have you ever met Jess Staley?
I met Jess Staley also about 2 times, maybe 3 times. Also, once in passing, and once I was delivering a trust document
To Mr. Staley?
To Mr. Staley, yes.
Why was that?
Mr. Staley was a signatory on a trust from Mr. Epstein.
Do you recall which trust?
It was a prior iteration of an estate planning trust.
Did you ever become aware of Mr. Staley having a sexual relationship with any women connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
I have no personal knowledge of that, never observed anything like that. After Epstein's death, I became aware there were allegations, I think, in the bank litigation that Staley had a relationship. Mr. Staley had a relationship. I have no way of knowing whether that's true or not.
Mr. Indyke, if I could return to the topic of private investigators. So I'm going to table this one for the moment and come back to it. Skipping ahead to Mr. Epstein's death and subsequent developments, when was the last time you spoke with Jeffrey Epstein?
A couple of days before he died.
What did you talk about?
Just to be clear on that, it's privilege. It was not personal. It was privilege. It was based upon his being in the jail at the time, and it was regarding subjects that one would talk about, like bail and things like that.
So I'm going to ask the witness for the substance of those conversations.
Those are subject to attorney-client privilege.
Yeah, I think
Not gonna be able to answer
I'm not
the
gonna-
details on that.
Okay, so I'm going to refer that one to the majority for a ruling, and for the record, the question is, what did Jeffrey Epstein say to you during your last conversation with him those 2 days before he died?
And
And
you have a generic description of them already from the witness.
the will, as we discussed earlier today, Mr. Indyke named you and Mr. Khan as co-executors, correct?
correct.
It also provides, as I understand, for Jeffrey Epstein's assets to ultimately be transferred to the 1953 trust. Is that correct?
That's also correct.
And that
But let's take a moment on that. That's only after the will and the estate is fully probated, which means that all claims are paid. All of those issues have to be resolved before any assets, if there are any remaining, go to that trust and then are subject to the terms of that trust.
And it's also my understanding that you and Karina Shuliak are the largest beneficiaries under the trust, with bequests of $50 million respectively. Is that right?
Not exactly right. I believe that Karina has several bequests under that will, including the properties, including an annuity, and including another disposition. The total amount of the dollar amounts, I believe, are like $100 million to her, plus all of the properties were to go to her. But obviously that didn't happen.
But I am correct that the trust includes a bequest to you of $50 million.
Trust includes a bequest to me for $50 million. Yes, but that, again, that only comes to play if any money is distributed to that trust, and as it stands right now, certainly that amount's not coming to the trust, if anything.
Did you discuss with Jeffrey Epstein the subject of his making you a beneficiary of the trust?
Just briefly, other than that he was doing it, and I should give direction to the attorney that's working on it to make the changes.
Do you have an understanding as to why he named you as a beneficiary?
No, I can't tell you what was in his mind.
Did it surprise you?
No, I was a beneficiary in previous iterations. But I, like many people, and many of the both professionals, assistants, colleagues, many people were in the document.
Well, I think to come at it another way, if the question, I'm sure you can understand, arises, given, as you've testified earlier, that your relationship with Mr. Epstein was professional rather than social, why would he include you as a beneficiary in his estate to the tune of $50 million?
I can only speculate, and I don't want to speculate too far into it. Couple things. Epstein had a brother, didn't have a lot of friends that he communicated with regularly, which is why the assets in his estate, it seemed to me, were distributed to people that were associated with him on a professional level. I think, I think that the bequests to me, as well as to Mr. Khan, were large bequests, because there was a lot of work to be done. It's a very complex estate, a lot of work, and the estate planning documents didn't provide for payment to us. And I think the idea was for the bequest to be paid. For estates of this size, typically the more direct route for this is paying the administrators a percentage of the assets. In this case, well over $600 million were the assets in this estate, and paid over time. In addition, it's anticipated in many instances that both the executors will also be doing other services, sometimes accounting work and legal work and things like that. So believe that part of this was an understanding that Mr. Khan and I would be providing substantial services for a very, very complex document, a very complex estate. And services, again, it's a lot of, I don't mean to imply that's not a lot of money, but other folks who would have gotten paid for managing an estate of this size would have gotten, given the complexity of the estate and given the amount we've been working on this for 7 years. 7 years is probably another 3 to go, maybe more, by the time all the claims are resolved. I think given the complexity and the size, the compensation is a lot, but in that context, you have a different view.
I think we will end our hour there and go off the record.
So we still have about 15 minutes, so we'll better do 1 or 2 rounds of questioning. And then I'll probably stop it.
We'll go back on the record. Oh, the minority wishes to make a statement.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, just to clarify, for the record, previous colloquy with counsel over the assertion of privilege as to the question, what did Jeffrey Epstein tell you during your conversation with him 2 days prior to his death? We would like to refer that question to the chairman for a ruling as to the applicability of privilege.
Thank you. Mr. Timmons.
In the case that was recently settled, Shane Doe 3, the Indyke and Khan, it's my understanding that you all sought to not disclose communications under attorney-client privilege, and the judge ruled that those communications were not protected because of the crime fraud exception.
Incorrect. What's your next question?
So the judge never ordered you all to turn over any documents because he deemed them not protected because of the crime fraud exception.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Indyke, I would like to briefly return to the loans that Mr. Epstein extended to yourself and other employees. Is it fair to say that it was customary that he would provide these loans to employees?
He was generous to many of his employees. And yes, did loan money to his employees.
Would you have?
Oh, boy. Why even record it if they freaking gonna redact everything? Stupid.
We'll keep your voice up.
Sorry, there was a form promissory note that was circulating around.
As far as the loans themselves, were the loans ever used to justify large movements of money?
No.
Were loan agreements ever used to make illicit funds appear legitimate?
No.
Mr. Indyke, have you ever advised clients to destroy documents?
No.
Have you ever been instructed to destroy documents?
No. Never been instructed to destroy documents. There are, in the context of corporate law, there are document retention programs. After a certain number of years, you can feel comfortable destroying documents, but no, never instructed and never received instructions to destroy this.
So I want to return to the discussion during the previous hour as it related to computers that were removed. It was your testimony, you had no personal knowledge of that, and you learned subsequently, is that correct?
That's correct.
And during our first hour, I asked you if you had any knowledge that anyone would have tipped off Mr. Epstein to the October 20th search warrant in Palm Beach. I believe that you testified no. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did you subsequently learn that Mr. Epstein was tipped off to the search warrant?
No,
Were you aware that Mr. Epstein had storage units?
I don't, can you tell me when and which storage unit you're referring to? Because I have storage units, but not for Mr. Epstein. So I want to make sure we're talking about the same.
Epstein directed private detectives to hide secret files and storage units across the US. Do you have any knowledge of that?
I have no knowledge of that.
And you haven't subsequently learned that he had any such process for hiding or concealing?
Correct, I have not learned that.
But the Democrats and liberals don't live right.
Earlier, you testified that Mr. Epstein maintained a safe room. Can you elaborate on what the safe room was?
I was not in the safe room. I actually never went inside it, but it was pointed out to me that it was a safe room, and by safe room, what that means is if, as I understand it, what that means is that if somebody is coming into your house to do you harm, you go into this room and they can't get in the room, and you are there locked in and protected in the safe room. That's what I meant by safe room. And as I understand it, it is fairly typical on the outside of the safe room to have a camera pointing down so that you can see if people are trying to get into the safe room.
Did you advise him to get a safe room?
No, I had no idea who had a safe room until after he died, and I told the residents.
Now, during the previous hours, it's come up numerous times, Mr. Epstein hired private investigators as a result of the 2006 investigation. Is that right?
My understanding is that his defense counsel hired private investigators.
Who were the private investigators?
I believe Riley Corral was a private investigator.
Did you have any interactions with the investigators or Mr. Curley?
I have no specific recollection of an interaction with them.
Now, I asked you during the first hour if you had ever directed private investigators in any way. I believe you testified that you had not.
But in connection with the investigation?
Correct.
Correct.
Did you subsequently learn about the directions that they were receiving from other counsels?
Not in any real substantive manner. I knew that there were communications, or I became aware of there were communications that had happened between them, but I wasn't privy to the content of the communications.
It's been alleged that the private investigators were acting in such a way that was intimidating towards those that they were following. You didn't know anything about that?
I remember seeing that allegation, and I don't recall where I saw that allegation, and that was, I think that happened. I think that happened during the investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office, if I'm not mistaken.
He's asked if you have personal knowledge.
But I have no personal knowledge of it. If it's personal knowledge, the answer is no. All right, thank you.
And you mentioned the private investigators that you knew of. Do you know what company they were with?
No.
Does Roadrock Investigation sound familiar to you?
That name sounds familiar to me. It does sound familiar to me. Yeah. I don't know that it's because of that, but the name sounds familiar to me. And I think I could supplement that a little bit. I believe roadblock was used for background checks on new employees.
Are there any storage units that were at any time in possession of the trust after Jeffrey Epstein's death?
Can you repeat the question, please?
After following Mr. Epstein's death, were there any storage units in possession of the trust?
The state as a committee. State.
No, the estate.
So after Mr. Epstein's death, there were storage units, but the storage units happened after we inventoried the assets and then moved them out of the houses into storage. They were relationships created after his death, based upon, you know, furniture and whatever, clothing and all the stuff that went into the house.
I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and just talk about why we're here. So there are things that almost 300 victims have been documented, and there's possibly up to another 100 out there. And pre-2008, 200 have been documented, of which 70% of those, these are all proximate or underage. Post-2008, there have been 70 documented. My understanding is that 0% were underage. To compensate those victims, there's been around $750 million in settlements from JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, the estate, Bank of America. And I think the purpose of this entire exercise is additional accountability. The American people are pissed, and I think appropriately so. A very wealthy man has taken advantage and ruined a lot of lives. And so I kind of view the whole purpose of this as being five different things we're doing. Number one, it seems there's allegations that pre-2008 underage women were engaging in sex with rich old dudes, and we want to list those names, and we're trying to figure that out. Second, there's possible undue influence associated with the guilty plea, and the fact that he never really went to jail for stuff that put him on the sex offender registry. I was a prosecutor for 5 years. I know people that did less than him that got a very long time in jail, and it seems that he was given a sweetheart deal. Number three, we want accountability for the people that conspired to continue the same scheme that he had pre-2008. And honestly, I'll get back to that in a minute, but that's the number one reason you're here. Number four, whether a foreign government or federal agency was involved in any of this, why he was doing the things that he was doing, it didn't make sense. And then last, but certainly not least, deterrence to future perpetrators, make sure this doesn't happen again. Fact number three. The American people want accountability for people that conspired with Jeffrey Epstein to destroy these lives. And you have been his attorney for decades, and you were instrumental to his operations, his estate's operations, and you've received millions and millions of dollars for that. So you're here answering questions. We appreciate that. I'm going to walk you through the scheme that occurred post-2008, and it's really hard for me to believe that you were not complicit, you were not an instrumental part of his human trafficking operation. So for purposes of words, the only assistant he had was Leslie Groff. Everyone else is a survivor or a victim, whichever one you want to use. He may have called them assistants, but he had a scheme. His scheme was to get them into the United States somehow. Some of them, it was promise of education. Some of it was promise of modeling careers or jobs, whatever it was. And once he got them in, he used a pretty complicated scheme to trap them. And you actually were a part of every single one of those things. Immigration was one. I want to talk to you about that because you said that while you have had interactions with Arda Bascardes, there was just a lot of really shady things going on. And so you communicate with him about the 2 marriages for the assistants to each other. And it's your testimony here today under oath that you did not realize those were sham marriages.
Just to be clear, because that was a long statement.
This-
And I know there's a question at the end.
That had all of
You
that
don't
in
want
there
to,
because
just to
it's
be,
a separate table.
okay, well, but that's not fair to set a table, not give them a chance to react, but then say, so after that, I have a very
Let's
simple
pause.
question. Just to be clear,
Before
you just wanted to answer the simple
we'll
question.
back up. Remove my question. For the purposes of the rest of my questions, Leslie Groff is an assistant, everyone else is a victim or a survivor, and I'm gonna ask you about the scheme that occurred after that. If you want to argue with anything that I just said before I ask you questions about the scheme that occurred that you seem complicit in, by all means, say whatever you'd like.
That's not a question. I mean, come on.
So I just
ask
set
one
the table.
question. and see if-
Very simple. The question is this. Do you believe that the two marriages that you helped facilitate with Arda Biscardi's were legitimate marriages or not?
I don't know.
But just because I think you asked that you helped facilitate the marriages. He's already testified. He didn't even know in advance of the marriages.
Are you aware of the email in the Epstein files that I can get for you that says from Epstein to him, copying both of you? I think that Arda Biscardi is going to flip on us. So, I mean, what was he going to flip on? What information did he have that would have caused him to flip on you?
Okay, I have no recollection of that email. And let me be clear, I have no belief at the time that I did anything for these marriages that they were sham marriages. I didn't
It
believe
wasn't just the marriages.
I didn't believe, let me finish, please, sir. I didn't believe them to be sham marriages. I didn't have any reason to believe they were. These are women who I believed were associated with it. These are women I believe to be associated with each other. I wasn't part of their social world. I did not question them why they got married, but they did get married. And I wasn't part of arranging those marriages. Absolutely was not.
Did Epstein ever talk to you about trying to arrange marriages with members of the opposite sex to his the women you call assistants but were actually survivors or victims?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not even sure what that question was.
Did Jeffrey Epstein talk to you about marrying his assistants to other people in an attempt to address immigration fraud?
No.
Did you create leases for the 6 victims, survivors, at 301 East 66th Street for the purpose of immigration fraud?
I did not create leases, number one. It wasn't for immigration fraud that I obtained a copy of the leases from OSA Properties to give to Arda Biscardi. I was requested by the women to get a copy of the lease so that they could give it to Arda, and I did so.
Did leases exist prior to that moment, or were they just staying there without a lease?
I don't know when the leases were created.
Okay.
I don't know when the leases were created, but given that this was properties that Epstein had an ownership or a leasing interest in, it doesn't surprise me that if they were living in that property, they didn't have a written document, and they needed a written document in order to give it to immigration. So when they asked me for their written document, I asked also, do you have a lease? Can you get me a lease?
Did you ever change the lease for one individual to include 2 for the purposes of the immigration application? Was one person on a lease, and then because the idea was saying, all right, we're going to marry these 12, did you change a lease that had one person's name on it to change at least to put 2 people's name on it for the purpose of then giving it to Arda Biscardi for the purpose of then filing for immigration documents?
I think I probably did, yeah.
Got it.
I think I did, yeah.
All right. You said earlier that you didn't know
But
where.
let's talk about that for a minute, because I know you want to jump to the next conclusion. Let's talk for that for a minute. If somebody gives me a lease and tells me this I need to give for immigration, and it doesn't have both parties to the lease on the lease, I would have said to them, you should put both parties on the lease.
We're going to walk through a bunch of questions here, and you're going to have an answer to all of them. But
that's important.
When you listen to these answers, you're going to say, "Oh, that's interesting. That could be true in this little narrow scope." But then when you put them all together, it creates a different story. So we're going to keep going.
Your story is based upon a hindsight that's based upon allegations that are made now, looking back.
Correct.
And your story assumes that I had knowledge that these women had sexual relationships with Jeffrey, that these women didn't have relationships with each other, and I absolutely did not. Okay? So
Okay,
you can piece together however you want.
We're going to piece it together.
however you want.
Okay, so
You cannot make something that's not true.
These
true.
6 or 7 survivors, when they got to this country under the promise of a job of education, of modeling, whatever it is, they didn't have an immigration issue. So
I don't know. I don't know how they
immigration-
got to this country. I don't know about those promises. I know nothing of that.
A lot of this is public record, and
That doesn't
So
mean
they-
that I have knowledge of it. I'm sorry,
Exactly.
but you were imputing knowledge to me that it doesn't exist.
so then they have to find a way to stay here, and the way to stay here was through this immigration scheme, which you were not overtly complicit in according to you, but it seems that there's a lot of variables that cause a lot of questions. So let's go to the next one. Businesses. You previously said you did not set up businesses for any of these victims. And I'm gonna ask you again, did you set up LLCs for any of the people that you call assistants that have been deemed victims by many courts?
I believe that I testified that SLK Designs is something that I formed. I testified that.
Any other LLCs that you created?
I don't recall any other.
So you do not recall creating any other LLCs for the victims that you call assistants.
Are they? I don't recall setting up an LLC for a victim. Number one.
Do you
Number
recall
two,
setting up an LLC?
if you have an LLC that you want me to ask,
I have the articles of corporation, but I'm not
so,
gonna.
and tell me what they are, and I'll answer whether or not I formed them or had something to do.
I know you
with
formed them because you're on the document that
Well,
created them.
then tell me what they are.
We're gonna move on. Did you take out loans on behalf of the assistants? I'm gonna keep calling them assistants, but they're not. The only assistant is Leslie Gruff.
Did I take out loans?
You take out loans using their social security numbers, using their names, using their LLCs that you created on behalf of these assistants.
No.
So it would surprise you to say that some of the victims, some of the assistants, have said that loans were taken out using their social security number and then held over them in addition to the leases that you created that you say you didn't create. So there's this complex immigration fraud scheme that you knew nothing about. There's this complex web of financial control. And then we're just getting to the phone and the computers.
Is there a question here?
I'm showing you why it's.
I don't know who's asking this question, but they're talking about immigration fraud. Really? I mean, if it's one of the minority, those Democrats, I'm like, who the hell are you asking those kind of questions about immigration fraud? Give me a break. They were the ones that wanted the open borders for 4 freaking years under Biden, and all the immigration fraud. I'm sure that's happening even still under them. So I just think it's ironic. I don't know who's answering or asking the question right this second, but yeah, he's really hammering on this stuff. Yeah.
Incredulous that you're sitting here saying that you had no knowledge of this.
You're actually not showing him anything. You're just making a lot of statements and then just calling him a liar. So if you actually want to show him something, that'd be great, but you haven't yet.
I asked him under oath whether he created LLCs for the victims, and he's saying that he did not, except for one.
First of all, you don't even say who you're talking about. So you're just
Sorry,
general.
I don't say who I'm talking about because I don't want to use names because they deserve their privacy.
I totally agree. We have been on the same page.
But
on
the
that.
American people also deserve accountability.
But you're asking if he's done something for somebody and not saying who it is, and he's supposed to remember. You're putting him in a very difficult position.
There's 7 people. There's 7 people that he knew the names of.
What's 7 people? First of all, I don't know that
Which
7 people
LLCs are you
salary
talking
about. So
which people are you talking about? Tell me.
The congressman has clarified, I believe, that this question applies to the assistants at the time. If there was anyone who had the title or role of assistant being granted a lease or a loan, if that can be the world of which we're working through for the purpose of this question.
That's the thing about the loans, because I don't really understand the question.
Some of the assistants have alleged that loans were taken out in their name for their LLCs that they never signed off on. They never did their taxes. They had nothing to do with these LLCs, and they were operated by you and Con.
Did they allege that I took out the loans?
Your name is on the document.
Did they allege that I took out loans for them?
You signed it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and out people.
Show me a document, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
we will follow up. I'm not gonna out people that want to move on with their life. But
you're making allegations,
what
but you can't give them the information. Okay, got it.
Mr. Indyke,
Yes.
when I asked you about the storage units, you asked us to be more specific.
Yes.
Do you recall any storage unit in Palm Beach, Florida?
I have a storage unit, or had a storage unit for the estate in Palm Beach, Florida, when we emptied the house because it was going to be sold. All the contents of the house were taken out of the house and put in a storage unit.
So what years would
That storage unit doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. But what years would the contents of the house have been moved into the storage unit?
Say that again, please.
You said that it was all in furtherance of the estate. I'm just asking a clarifying question.
Yeah.
So are we talking 2019 that all or everything from the house would have been moved to the
2019 or 2020?
What about West Palm Beach?
The storage unit in Palm Beach for the Palm Beach house was in West Palm Beach.
Were there any storage units in New York State?
When the house was being prepared for sale in New York, a moving company also packed the belongings from that house and put them in a storage unit. I don't sitting here know where the storage unit was located, whether it was in New York, it may have been on Long Island City, it may have been across the river in New Jersey. I don't know.
I'm going to save us time and just ask, are you aware of any storage units that were used prior to storage units for the estate?
No.
I believe I asked you in the previous hour, but I'm going to ask you again for the sake of these questions. Did Mr. Epstein ever discuss receiving massages with you?
With me, no. In the context of conversations with defense counsel, they discussed them, but he never discussed them with me.
Were you aware that Mr. Epstein was receiving massages?
My understanding, based upon what I learned from defense counsel and the statements that were in the police report, was that there were massages, that some of them ended in sexual conduct, and that some of them involved underage people, that Epstein claimed he didn't know that they were underage, was adamant about it. There was a lie detector test in substance that said that. And again, the statement suggested there was no, or indicated there was no force, no coercion.
After Mr. Epstein's incarceration, are you aware of whether he continued to receive massages?
No, I'm not aware.
This time, I'd like to introduce will be marked as Majority Exhibit 5. And this is case number EFTA 326543, and it is itinerary email from April 13th, 2016.
Okay.
Mr. Indyke, the sender, Bebe Adu.
Yep.
Are you familiar with her?
I am.
Who is she?
She was my assistant. And at times when Epstein's assistants were not available, I think Leslie, in particular Leslie, Dee Dee would fill in for Leslie. Her office was down the hall from mine.
When did Bebe start,
Her name is Dee Dee.
Dee Dee start employment with you?
I'm not sure. Somewhere around the mid 2000, mid 2010, 2014, 15, around there.
And you mentioned that you would fill in for
She was Jones.
for Mr. Epstein. Did Mr. Epstein direct you to hire her?
No. I interviewed her, got her name from, I think, Indeed, or one of those job search places. She had previously worked for a law firm.
Now I want to direct your attention just to the April 15th, 2016, and it references a Thai massage course. Was it typical that, or actually, let me back up. Who do you understand this itinerary to be prepared for?
I don't have an understanding of who is prepared for it. Sense of duty.
Would you presume that it was for Mr. Epstein?
It seems like that seems like that's right. Yeah.
Would it appears that your legal assistant had a role in scheduling massage courses. Would you disagree with that characterization?
It would surprise me if that were true. This looks to me to be simply acknowledging as a reminder to him that this was scheduled. It's not something I ever received, and it doesn't indicate that she prepared it for him.
This is in 2016 after Mr. Epstein's incarceration, which was based on inappropriate conduct that was a result of massages. Would this strike you as unusual or concerning?
Inappropriate conduct with underage women, right? Yeah, knowing what I know now, yes, of course, this is concern.
Who else worked at DKI?
As I said, Leslie Groff worked for me for some time. When Epstein was in jail.
And during the minorities hour, you talked about performing legal work for that related to the Wexners. Did you ever perform legal work for Leon Black?
Some.
What was your relationship with Leon Black?
Only through Mr. Epstein.
What was the nature of the work you did for Mr. Black?
Mr. Epstein did tax planning and estate planning for him, and the transactional work that I did was an offshoot of that work.
Did you have any interactions with Mr. Black outside of the work that you did for him?
No, I did not.
We discussed Evie previously, but was she on an employer-sponsored visa?
Who?
Evie?
No, Evie was.
During the previous hour, it was mentioned that there was a joint defense agreement. Can you elaborate on what that is?
I believe that was referring to the agreement among all of the defense counsel in connection with the investigation and negotiation of Mr. Epstein's issues in Florida.
I'm gonna stop it here. It's well over an hour. I thought I could do the 45 minutes, but then they just keep going and going. So anyway, I will talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good afternoon. See y'all. Bye.